Welcome again to the Clive Barker Podcast. This is episode 42, Occupy Midian on location. This was there were two screenings of the Cabal Cut, of Nightbreed in Portland, Oregon on May 4th and May 5th. This was at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival and the Hollywood Theater in Portland, Oregon. And the Hollywood Theater was great. It was a super neat old theater. There were the Saturday screening. There were 400 seats filled, and so the energy there was just awesome. The Saturday was like at 1:00 in the afternoon, kind of the peak of the festival. So there were lots and lots of people there. Super exciting. And Sunday was in a smaller, the screen upstairs had a smaller amount of seats, and it was later at night. It was 7 p.m. So there were fewer people there. But it was really neat because Malcolm Smith, who played Reverend Ashbury, showed up to the Q&A afterwards. So for those people that were there and stuck around for the Q&A, that was awesome. So anyway, also on Saturday, I set up a kind of a Occupy Midian event, Occupy Midian / Clive Barker podcast event, where we all went out for pizza. Russell Charrington, the restoration director, was there. The director, Richard Stanley, which I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know his movies, and it's been pointed out to me quite a bit. Hey, isn't that Richard Stanley in those photos? Yeah, so Russell told me that this is Richard Stanley, and he's a director, and that I should see the movie Dust Devil at the festival, but unfortunately that screened at the same time as Nightbreed, so I didn't get a chance. So I don't know his movies, but people have been speaking really highly of them on Facebook, so I really plan to watch them. Hardware and Dust Devil, I think. So anyway, also at the party was Maureen Maver. She's a friend of the show. I actually originally had intended for her to be a co-host on the podcast, but she didn't want to do that. But yeah, so Maureen Maver was there. And Russell Charrington, the restoration director, my friend Robert Schaefer, my other friend Jeff Arcaro, people that live sort of in the area and were, wanted to go see this with me. And, and Cindy Somebody Cabal. So if you've seen her on the Occupy Midian page on Facebook, that's her real legal name. Malcolm Smith asked her to get out her driver's license, and he took a picture of it with her name like that. And if you ever want to know the reason why her name is that, or why she changed her name to that, ask her, but beware, it's a crazy story, and you might regret it. So anyway, this is episode 42, as I said, of the Clive Barker podcast, so we'll start with the intro of the Saturday screening. So enjoy.
and they didn't understand what they bought. So they basically told him he had to do 6 weeks of reshoots, or they were going to take the film away from him. And Clive basically then reshot for 6 weeks. He changed it to the night brief that you guys have seen. How many of you guys have seen the night brief? Okay, great, a lot of you. Right, so what you've seen disappointed a lot of people, and more to the point, disappointed Clive Barker. He spent the next sort of 15 years telling people that there was a much more beautiful film, that he'd made it. And myself and a guy called Mark Miller writes the Hellraiser comic for Clive. We spent a long time talking to Morgan Creek and 20th Century Fox, trying to find out if there was a way to get into their archives and actually start to restore the film. And basically, when Mark rang them, the first thing they did was laugh at him and said nobody would want to watch Nightbreak. So I can't see anybody. There's nobody here, clearly. It looks to be about 400 people that want to watch it today. So they said nobody would want to watch it and laughed at Mark. And then Mark kind of set to work doing things with Clive. And one day, Mark was in Clive's office, and he was kind of like moving some books around, and he pulled some books out, and then there was a videotape there, and it said Nightbreed on it, and it said Nightbreed work print. And he thought, oh my God, and it's in Clive's house. So he pulled it out, and he kind of surreptitiously took it home to watch it. And when he got home, it didn't work, because it was PAL UK. And you live in the land of the never the same colour, NTSC. So basically, he took that, and then he got it transferred eventually by some people that do Clive's website, and they transferred it, sent it back. He watched this really, really rough work print, which, I mean, you guys ever seen a work print? Where, they're like, you get 8-minute chunks and you get leader reels, there's no sound on them, but it gives you kind of a basis. Now, I work with Mark and Clive a lot, and on one of my trips to LA, I said to Mark, I said, you know that work print you've got, the one that screened Indianapolis? And I said, can I take it home to watch it? And he said, yeah, of course. He made me a copy, I took it home, and I watched it, and I just thought, well, this is kind of stupid. We've got this, we've got the film, I've got Clive's first draft script, which is what he shot, and I thought, well, I'm going to make it so I can watch it. Seriously, so I just made it, right, with an editor, and it became my hobby for 6 months. Like, I could disappear for days and then work on this, and I'm lucky enough to be friends with most of the people that Clive knows, and I got Doug Bradley to come back in, and there's a thing on YouTube you can watch called Dub Doug. So he came and redubbed his voice, and I kind of slowly but surely reconstructed it. And then on my next trip out to LA, I took a fully packaged DVD and gave it to Clive and to Mark. And then I got this like thing. Mark was like all expletives, this is amazing, it's fantastic. And then Clive said, I've got some notes for you. And if anyone knows Clive Barker, some notes could be a novel. And he basically, so I'm like, shit. So I open this email, and there's 4 little changes. Like, not even big, like, can you move one thing to here? Can you trim this? Can you remove this little bit of voice here? And can you put a piece of music here? That's all he asked me to change. And that was version 1 that screened last year in North Carolina. And so what you're about to watch today, you can ask questions at the end. We can discuss why different characters die and different characters live. You'll have all read about this in various magazines and on the cover of the Daily Lurker. But what you're watching isn't 40 minutes longer than Nightbreed. It's 70% unseen footage. It's completely different. But what you've got to remember here is that, and this is really important to me, is story is everything, isn't it, in great films? They have great stories, don't they? The things that we love, whether it's Casablanca, whether it's The Thing, whether it's Alien, they all have great stories. bridge and things like that. So this is constructed from 2 work prints and the original release. After most people don't notice, but there are scenes that look like they've come from a 1980s porno. Right, so you have to forgive that because the story is so wonderful. And when it crackles a little bit, you'll realise because it comes from the work print. But the good news is that we're pretty sure that we've sold it in America, we've sold it in Europe, and we've got the money now to do the full restoration of. Here and everything else that happens has allowed that to happen. So we officially stopped screening the film on the 20th of October, and then it's all systems go to try and get the release to happen as quickly as possible. So sometime in the not too distant future, you'll be able to buy a Blu-ray and DVD with Nightbreed on it and the Cabal cut. I'm not going to say too much more because I'm going to come back afterwards and I want you to abuse me for changing this film. I want you to ask questions. I want to talk about it with you. So I think we're going to have some fun afterwards. So enjoy Nightbreed the Cabal Cut. And it's the longest film you're going to see here, but it's worth your time and attention. So I'll see you in about 2 hours, 15 minutes. Enjoy.
And here is the Q&A session after the screening.
The other film, isn't it? Yeah. Different characters. What do we think of Decker dying? Yeah, he's supposed to die. He dies in the book. So in the other film, Decker living is kind of wrong. But then I kind of think that in horror movies, whoever stayed dead. So if we wanted to bring it back, we could easily bring it back. So what you guys say to me informs where this film goes to next. So each time I've screened it, it's kind of evolved. And this is the 7th different version of it. So it's version 7, and I kind of think that when it's released, it'll probably be about 5 to 10 minutes shorter than it is now. But I want you to see every monster. I want you to see the kind of non-CGI Ray Harryhausen type creatures and, all the good stuff, really. And I wanted to stay truthful to Clive Barker and what he set out to achieve with that. And I've said quite often that I think it's gone with the wind with monsters. Yeah, but it's a love story, isn't it? It's a love story, and I think that's the important thing, and that was taken away. I mean, Anne's character was completely wrong, wasn't it? Of what it could be. I'm going to root around in my pocket because she actually sent me a love letter to you guys. So I've got to read it out. I should have read it before, but obviously I didn't. I've saved it for now. So she says, "Hi gang, you'll have to forgive me. I know you're there for, and I'm going to keep you, but I just wanted to say that you are arguing with some of the luckiest bastards around." Right? And I'm just saying that because Russell's accent's going to make it sound so much better. Okay, right? I say it because you're about to see it. Well, you watched it anyway, so that's where I put it. First things can be phenomenal, powerful things. I remember the first time I saw I, Claudius, the first time I went to see Bruce Springsteen, the first time I stood in a Roman Coliseum. I remember the first time I saw the Cabal cut in Charlotte last year. In each of these instances, I knew a bit about what was about to experience or thought I did. You've probably seen Nightbreed possibly many times, and have always forgiven it the lapses and surprises you always knew were meant to be there, that should have been there, and are now about to be rewarded for your faith in the story, your faith in Clive Barker, Russell and Mark, and your faith in yourselves, for your tireless efforts in letting the people who hold the keys to Midian know that you are where you are right now, and we So enjoy your first viewing of this ever-evolving film. Embrace your role in the saga of it coming to be, and know that right now there's at least one girl in Brooklyn that's very, very jealous of you all. Loves you all out. I remember the first time we screened it, she got on stage and sang to Clive, which was kind of amazing. So anyway, you guys, what would you like to say to me? Anybody got a question? Over there, thank you. Yeah, got a gentleman there. Waistcoat, yeah. Reddish colour shirt, yeah. It's very kind of you. I'd like to say that I was actually, the best time I ever watched this was when I printed the first DVD and took it down and watched it on my plasma TV by myself. In like a complete geek, saying I'm the only person in the world. I didn't actually make it for any of you to see, I made it for me. That's the real truth. I just get to do this now. It's really good. Is there anybody else? Yeah, okay. Over there.
A couple of decorative questions. One, the opening bird scene of the family in the house. I was curious about the murder supposed to be more graphic, shot, more bloodshed. And also, I know the relationship with him talking to the masses of himself was more elaborate in this way. I was kind of
Sure, yeah. So that scene was the most difficult scene of all because it's the scene that makes it feel more like a slasher movie. Yeah, and that scene is intact in both versions, so there isn't anything else. There are no tweaks and things. You may notice throughout the film there are scenes that you think, well, I've seen that in the other movie, but actually the quality's not as good in this one. Well, actually, those scenes are much stronger in this version. You just think you've seen it before. There's like 8 or 9 shots that weren't in the other version, and to me, to jump between quality makes it harder to watch. I'm trying to give you the best experience. But so that in that scene there was nothing to put in. Yeah. So in terms of him talking to his mask, that's incredibly important because that's in the book. And it shows his madness and it makes him a sick fuck, doesn't it? Really. So for me to put that back in was really, really important. Yeah. So yeah, gentleman over there.
The things we think we've seen before. Sometimes when I was watching this film, I thought, I've seen this before. Is this like 1, 2, or 5 seconds view? But, or is it a completely different take? The same scene was a different take.
No, you know too, as a filmmaker, that when we shoot around things. So we're trying to construct it. And what Clive had done is much more subtle within those scenes. So yeah, so they were probably seconds or reactions and things that weren't in the other one that I thought were very important. And all the time I was sticking really faithfully to the script. So I was using the original dialogue. So I wanted to give all of you the opportunity to see everything. So that's why it exists like it does. And that's when I first presented it, you know that scene where they go and get the guns of the Sons of the Free? Well, that went on for like another 8 minutes. And I just thought, how many times do we see people load guns and go off? You know, so I kind of cut that back, even though some people have said, I want to see more of it. But yeah, so it's just decision. It's got to play for the audience. I think that's really important, as you know yourself. Yeah. Over to you, yeah.
So, just a simple question. To me, it's pretty obvious aesthetic difference of Freeze as well as the stairs versus the final shot from the chair. Or if you plan to reconcile those in the final release.
What you mean the stuff where Ashbury and Igerman?
Well, the appearance of Ashbury.
Yeah.
He looks very different coming up the stairs as everybody's in the high school.
Yeah.
What are you planning to visually reconcile the two?
Sure. What you can do is, obviously, there are differences in picture qualities and grade and things like that, and there's very much that we can do to things to match things a little bit later on. My biggest bugbear every time I watch it is the sound mix, to be honest. I mean, because that sound has come from very many different sources. But yeah, I see what you mean. There are scenes like where Baphomet is taken to bits, for instance, that I'd like to rework in the final edit, and like look at some digital work as well. But again, I mean, for me, this is a movie that Clive made 99.9% practically, didn't he? So they're all practical effects. So, to get near to that's really important. So, yeah, but I accept, there are things where, if they're not continuity, there are things that we can clean up.
I mean, it's fine either way. I'm just wondering if that's a problem.
Yeah, sure, yeah. It's a relevant question. I haven't had that question before, so thank you. So I've done a lot of these. Yeah, over to you.
Just Clive basically this about this is all basically up to you.
Well, luckily, I have a great understanding of Clive's work. I'm the biggest Clive Barker geek in this room. So Clive is a great collaborator because he watched it and said this is his film, and he said that now this film belongs to me and a guy called Mark Miller, which is really kind of him. But then he texted me the other day and said, I kind of had something to do with Nightbreed. He said, I want to know everything that's happening. So he's excited and he wants to know. But when I said in the introduction that he only asked for 4 changes, he's never asked for a change since, which for me is incredibly flattering. No, 4 changes, in a 2-hour, 20-minute long movie. But this is not my film, it's Clive Barker's. I'm merely taking the credit of restoration director, but I'm humbled by being given that credit by Clive, because he shares his film with me now. And it's for me, this is Clive Barker's masterpiece, because it's very different than Hellraiser, it's very different than Lord of Illusions and the other work. So, I think that it's an undiscovered gem, for most of the world. For the last year and a bit, it's been screened all over the world. It finishes its screening on the 20th of October this year, and then goes on from there. But it's some of the... We are approached all the time, like we're hoping that Cronenberg is going to come to a screening, which is amazing. So in Canada, later on in the year, it's going to be shown in Japan this year, all over the world, which, for a film that the studio thought no one cared about, this is amazing, isn't it? Nobody wants to watch it. Yeah, Guy, we're right back there. But this was made the same time they were finishing the first Batman movie. Yeah, but this is where an Elfman score starts and one ends, I don't know. Because I could use music in this movie from Edward Scissorhands and Batman, couldn't I? Maybe that's where I got the rest of the score from. But there's only so much score exists for this film, so I've actually, as cunningly as possible, reused it. So I've reused motifs and given motifs to characters, and that's one of the things I'm proud of that me and the editor did, is stretch that music to make it fit. But yeah, I can see lots of things and lots of other movies in it. I actually see Federico Fellini in here, and I see Jean Cocteau in here. That's like if anyone's seen La Belle Bête by Jean Cocteau, if you haven't, you must watch it, because that's where the monster is a much more interesting character. And I think the Cocteau influence in this film is hugely important. So, that's one of the things I definitely see. So somebody else asked a question here, there.
Yeah, are there any versions of that
The stuff that's crackly, right? Basically, the studio never would admit where the original source footage went. Now, if anyone's ever seen the Alien 3 work print, that looked like this, and it was cleaned up digitally. And that's the least that will happen to it is it will be cleaned up digitally to a standard where you wouldn't know the difference. But it costs like $50,000. Now, this movie got the 16th best director's cut of all time in an award recently. It beat The Exorcist. Right? Its total budget was $150 out of my bank account. It wasn't like Waterworld $100 million or anything like that. It was actually... So to do the next stage, I absolutely need money from the studio. So the studio gives us money when it's released, then the images get cleaned up. But I hope that each and every one of you could see past the porno quality. and see the beauty of what Clive Barker was trying to do. And you're so in such an amazing place to have actually seen this at this stage before it does get cleaned up and released. Because part of me thinks it might not be as much fun when it gets to that place, but who knows? You know, it's great. So anybody else? Anybody over here? Yeah, sorry.
Was the footage in this all footage of the inhabitants of Midian and their life and their mythology, or was there more shots?
Well, I only know of two things that are in the script that aren't in this. One is a kind of pelican sex scene, right, with Shona Sussy, which I'd like to see. Yeah. So I haven't seen that yet, and I have a really fragile tape that I can only play once, and it's got a boom sequence in it where he's naked and transforming. So I know about that. Yeah, that'll be quite good for the later. So I know about that, and I have it at home, and I'm only going to do it when I do the final work. And I know that there's another scene between Pelican and Kinski when Midian's coming to pieces, where basically Pelican admits that it's his doing, which I'm really interested to see, but I haven't found it in any of the versions that I've seen. But Nick Vince tells me, and Ollie Parker tells me it was shot. So, you know, I still live in hope that I'll find a load of film in a hangar in you know, somewhere strange in America, but right now we haven't found anything. So, and Morgan Creek, as you probably all know, were at the beginning of the career, they weren't very good at archiving. Like, if anyone knows the story of Exorcist 3, that got ruined, and it got cut back together by a guy, but he was never lucky enough to find any of the missing footage. That's part of the beauty of this film, that we've found that missing footage. But yeah, I could watch The Night Read forever. If anyone saw yesterday, Clive posted on Twitter that he's writing something else about Midian, which is kind of exciting. And he's calling it The Monsters of Midian. So that could be very exciting. So yeah, great. Anybody, anything else? Yeah.
I ever envision a sequel or this being part of a movie?
Well, Clive has written something to continue the story. It might become a movie, it might become a TV series, but we have something that continues it. And it takes the Night Read into like a kind of X-Men type world. So they're kind of like doing things in the world, and they live underneath the radar, but they exist. I have an idea, and I call it a new Midian, and the Night Read come back together 20 years later and put the way back together. That's what I'd like to do. Well, we all have ideas, we all want to do it. Morgan Creek, because of you guys, have now realised the collateral in this, and they're trying to get something going. Which is going to be, as long as we have something to do with it, it's fantastic. A Night Read without Clive Barker would be kind of silly. So, but then if someone sees dollars, they go ka-ching, and that's that, isn't it? So, how can we make money? They announced a Screen TV series the other day, didn't they? So anything can have a life in TV these days. So.
I just wanted to ask about the I know the ending in the theatrical cut with Decker being brought back to life. I was wondering if that's something that was forced upon Clive. You had to do that originally.
Yeah, they thought that Decker was the most important character, and the weight of the reshoots is that when he was shot to make him live. The only thing I've left in purposely from the reshoots is when Decker turns up at the guy with all the dead animals.
I hate that scene.
You don't like it?
I hate that scene.
Oh, well, Clive likes it so much. Why don't you like it?
I don't like exposition from Decker. Decker's just crazy. I hate that he has an excuse for it. Because they're breeders. He's cleaning the breeders. I hate that. He should just be crazy.
Good. Well, thank you. That was definitely a Clive wanting to leave that in because of the old guy is quite a famous horror actor, isn't he? Yeah, Johnny Go. Yeah, so he's in it, and that was the only thing that changed Decker's character that kind of stayed in. So I thought it was really important to go back to how Decker is in the book. When I introduce this and I say, have you read Cabal? This is Cabal. Well, I called it the Cabal Code the first time I did it because I wanted to make Cabal for the screen. I wanted to watch it. Like I said, I wanted to watch it myself. So it was really important. So on my journey to get here, I brought 20 20 one-sheets for the film. And what I do is I take 10 one-sheets to each screening, so they're the proper American cinema posters. But they managed to leave my luggage in Amsterdam. So, but apparently it's arrived. So at tomorrow's screening, or tomorrow during the day, I'm going to bring them down. So if anyone wants to buy a one-sheet, they're not very expensive, and we'll sign them and they'll be here tomorrow. So just have a look for them in the entranceway. But also, there's a screening tomorrow. There's going to be a very, 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 very special surprise guest. And he's never been to a screening before. He's never seen this version of the movie. And he's quite an important character in the film. And he's going to come to tomorrow's screening as well. So if anyone's around and you want to get your poster signed by him, I can't tell you who it is till he appears on stage after the movie. But yeah, we're showing it again tomorrow and he'll be here. So if anyone's around tomorrow, you can meet one of the most important cast members too. So we'll be around. So if you like what you saw, go to our Occupy Midian Facebook page and support us. And if you haven't signed our petition, it'd be great if you did. We're up to about 13,500 signatures, but each one just convinces Morgan Creek to actually take this further, and it's really good if you could support us. So I hope you enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed seeing it in such a fantastic cinema on such a great screen. So it looked really cool today. So enjoy it, and I'll be right near the door if anyone wants to tell me anything. So nice to meet you.
Okay, turns out there was nothing really good or usable from that pizza party sound. The pizza party was fun, and actually we even tried to bring Jose in by Skype on my iPad and on my cell phone, speakerphone, but nobody could hear him except me if I held it right up to my ear. So that didn't really work out. It was all kind of it was all loud and everybody was just talking to the people next to them, but it was a lot of fun. So anyway, next up is the Sunday screening, and this is the the introduction for that. So you'll hear some repeat stuff from the other one, but some of it's a little different too.
Festival. Thank you all so much for your support and coming out and supporting the festival. And how many of you is this your first year? Amazing. What do you guys think? Gonna be back next year? Cool. Okay. So we are very, very, very pleased to be able to present Night Breed, the Cabal Cut, restored by Restoration Director Russell Sherrington. And he is here with us this evening to talk about his movie. We'll be showing it, and then he'll be doing the Q&A afterwards. And we also have a special treat that one of the actors is actually here with us this evening. Malcolm Smith, who plays the Reverend Ashbury, is here, and he'll be joining Russell afterwards as well. So if you have questions for him, he can answer them.
Hi everybody. So I want to tell you a little story about, this isn't my film, it's some guy called Clive Barker. Ever heard of him? I hear he's quite talented. Anyway, so way back in 1989, when Clive started to do this, he adapted his novel Cabal. Now, has anybody in the room actually read Cabal? Yeah. Great. So he actually ended up making a film called Nightbreed that, if you read the novel Cabal, isn't really that same story. Would you agree with that? If you read the book? Yeah. Yeah, but Clive actually wrote his original screenplay is Cabal. And he set out to make Cabal. And what happened is, when he presented the first cut of it, which wasn't that dissimilar to what you're about to watch, the studio didn't like it very much because they thought they bought a film from the man that made Hellraiser. So they thought they were going to get, monsters that were, killing people and things like that. And they just didn't get the idea that the monsters were the good guys. And they were, misunderstood, and society was doing different things. So they basically told Clive that he had to do rewrites, he had to change the onus of the story, and they preferred the character of Decker. They wanted to bring him to the fore, they wanted to make him much more important, and they wanted to sling the Nightbreed back, and they wanted to take some of Clive's magic away. So Clive was forced into about 6 weeks of reshoots, and then when the film came out in September 1990, basically Clive had a little bit of a battle with the studio. He wasn't very happy, he said things in the press, and the studio basically buried the film. So they decided, right, we don't want to do anything with this, it's not what we wanted, so we'll kill it. So they sort of did that, and then Clive, for a long time, at conventions and film festivals and appearances, always talked about there was a much more interesting film. There was a Nightbreed that was Cabal. So basically, a guy called Mark Miller came along, and he said to Clive, what do you think about me finding the original footage? And Clive said, yeah, come and do it, we can do this. So he rang Morgan Creek up with Clive's permission and said, we'd like to make a director's cut of Nightbreed, and the studio said, well, nobody will want to see it. Nobody will care. So I always say to the audience, well, there's nobody here today. Clearly, there's nobody here, nobody wants to see it. It's screened around the world. It's screened to about 15,000 people in a year. So those 15,000 people clearly want to watch this film, and there are many more every day that want to watch it. So they said nobody would want to watch it, and Mark went away quite despondent. And then he eventually started working with Clive, and one day he was in Clive's office, and he was kind of moving things around, and he pulled the book out. And behind the book there was a VHS tape that said Nightbreed on it. And he pulled it out, and what's this? And he said, no. Then he said, when he pulled the tape out of the box, it said, work print. And he thought, oh my God, I found it. So he took it home and then put it in his VHS player, and it wouldn't play it because it was PAL, which is UK. So he found this thing, but he couldn't watch it. So he sent it to Europe, it got transferred onto a DVD, it came back, he watched it, and he discovered it was a really rough work print. And then a convention heard about this in Indianapolis called Horror Hound, and they actually screened this really rough work print. And imagine you're all here now. The biggest fear that a filmmaker has is that when they come back to the Q&A, you've all gone. Well, that literally happened at this work print screening. Nobody, because if you've ever seen a work print, they're kind of like, they're little 8-minute chunks with lots of, they have no sound, they're very rough. And the audience kind of walked out. And then I was next visiting Clive in Los Angeles, and I kind of surreptitiously said to Mark, I said, can I have a copy of that work print? I'd just like to take it home and have a look at it. So I kind of took it home and had a look at it and thought, well, this is a no-brainer. I'm a filmmaker, I've got Nightbreed, I've got the first 2 drafts of the script, and I've got the work print. So I digitized the work print, I digitized the original cinema release, and cut it all into little pieces, just like when you shoot a film. And I basically, I didn't watch Nightbreed as it was originally released, I just reread the script twice and started again. And basically completely reconstructed it from all the available material. And then I kind of put it together and I burnt it onto a disc. And I was a big library with my edit suite, and I came down to the living room and put it into the Blu-ray player and watched it on my TV. And I had like goosebumps, thinking I'm the only person in the world that's seen Cabal. And it was amazing. So then I took it over to Los Angeles, gave it to Clive, gave it to Mark, and they watched it, and Mark was blown away. He was in love with it because he'd always wanted this to happen. And then Clive watched it a couple of days later, and I got an email saying, Clive has some notes for you. And it's like, shit. It's the only time I've ever been fearful to open an email from my friend. And I'm going, oh, what's she going to say to me? Is he going to be pissed off, or et cetera, et cetera. And he sent me this beautiful, heartfelt letter, and he asked me to make 4 minuscule changes in a 2-hour, 20-minute long film. So he asked me to move a scene, he asked me to clip. At the beginning, you'll see something where it goes boom, boom, and there was originally a third boom. That was one of his changes. He asked me to put a piece of music towards the end, and that was basically everything he asked me to do. And he kind of fell in love with it. He was incredibly kind to me. And then we were asked to screen it at a convention in North Carolina. And by the time we'd screened that the weekend, Ryan, who's here today, was at the convention too. There was about 5,000 people within a week had requested to see it. Because, that was how far it broke onto the internet and Occupy Midian started, etc. And then I've just screened it around the world, and today is another fantastic opportunity to bring it to its audience. So there's very little else I want to say before, because afterwards I want you to ask me the questions about why different characters die and why they live, and what, about the subtleties and the differences in this film. But the last thing I want to say is that because it comes from work prints, some of the picture quality isn't as good as the DVD sections, and you've got to. You won't notice after you've watched it for 5 minutes. That's my belief. Most people don't ever say anything about that. That final restoration will happen when I get the money from the studio, which looks like it's imminent because it's got UK distribution and it's got American distribution lined up now. So I can do the final thing. But occasionally, and this is my attempt at humour, you'll see a few scenes that look like pornos from the 1980s. Right? And the content's not porn, but the kind of picture quality is. Well, it's porn for monster lovers. But yeah, so you please forgive it the little crackles, and towards the end there's a little bit of things move. But I didn't want you to miss a single inhabitant of Midian. And I didn't want you to miss a single element of the story, because we all know that when we go to the cinema and they present another Transformers movie, it's a piece of shit because it doesn't have a story. Now I think that Clive's work's wonderful because he's one of the greatest storytellers of our time. And why I called it the Cabal Club is because absolutely faithfully you're about to watch Cabal as Clive wrote the novel and then the film he tried to create. So I'd like you to enjoy it. I'm going to come back afterwards, and I'd love to hear what you think. And Malcolm's going to come down too, so that'll be a fantastic opportunity. I'm excited that he's here too. Okay, so I'll see you all in 2 hours, 15 minutes. Enjoy it.
Okay, next up is the Q&A, and this was for the Sunday screening, and this is quite a bit different because it had Malcolm Smith. And and it was really neat getting his perspective on the movie, and he hadn't seen it since it originally was in the theaters in 1990. So this is really interesting getting his point of view, and of course, because he was with Clive at the time, he actually even told a little story about a test screening of a version of Nightbreed that they did in a shopping mall. So this is really cool. Stay tuned, and I'll catch you again after the Q&A.
So, basically, you've now seen, and Clive wanted that to do, you've seen the film that he set out to make. So, have you any kind of observations or questions? The film that you're watching is about 70% different than the other film. So if I rejected anything that's in the other version, it was because it didn't fit with the story. Right, and there are subtleties within scenes and things like that you might not know. You might think, well, the old version of this film that scene was kind of in it, but it's very cut very differently. So that was really important. It was just really important to go back to the original story and tell that story. Yeah. No, I can't imagine it any other way now. That's true. I don't want to watch the other version. I don't want. I mean, did any of you guys Decker fans in the audience? You like Decker? Yeah. So, what do you think about him now talking to his mask?
Yeah, I did like that scene. I admit some of Decker being cut back I wasn't entirely cool with, but I definitely thought that scene was cool.
Yeah. Oh, what did you think of Decker dying?
Yeah, I was okay with it, but I definitely think Cronenberg's performance was. I mean, and it's his only acting performance, but I definitely thought it was a highlight of the original version. It's not that he's not good in this one, but I definitely felt a difference about him being cut back, and that may have been one of the only. There was definitely lots of things I liked better about this version, but that was definitely one thing that I kind of regret.
Yeah, but remember in monster movies, no one stays dead. So if they wanted to bring Decker back, they always cut. So it would kind of happen. I mean, so Malcolm, you haven't seen this film for a long time, have you? So what do you see that's different about it now? Or what's different to you watching it 20 years later?
Did you see how much hair I used to have? Oh my gosh. I haven't seen it for 15 years, and I didn't like the film. I was bummed. It didn't make sense to me at the end, and my whole character arc just went out the window with that bringing Decker back at the end, and so I just so appreciated the full story this time. It just made sense. It built as a plot, and I want to see the crisp version. I want the details up there because I was fascinated by it.
I was going to say, your character in the other film just kind of teleports in more. He just comes in the Nightbreed as it's released. You kind of just turn up like bunglingly, and then there's no development of your character, and then you're gone. So, how does it feel that you become so pivotal in that version?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I would go. Well, at the time, I was told, well, this is going to be this is setting it up more for the sequel. And I was like, well, that sounds okay, but it still doesn't make sense to me. The whole experience of being there and filming was just like 3 months of fantasy for me. In that underworld Midian place, it seemed absolutely real, and the creatures, you could get 2 inches from them and they looked real. So I was just in this, I was that Reverend Ashbury, I come from 3 generations of ministers, and so I was there looking around going like, oh, I don't have to act at this. This is such a trip. But I was just delighted to actually see my character develop. I never saw that. I remembered filming those scenes, but they never came together in a way that I got to see it. So it was like, oh wow, that was a full part.
You told me the other day in an email that you actually saw a version of the film in a shopping mall. So was it similar to this version, or was it different?
It had the scene at the end with Laurie coming back to life, and it didn't have the Decker brought back to life. But it was very short, so they edited. And I just remember I was actually near Clive afterwards, and it was the targeted audience of 18 to 20-year-old males, and in this shopping mall in Southern California. And these guys were not into this love story at all. So at the end, when Laurie opens her eyes, some people laughed in the audience, and I could tell Clive was pained, and all the researchers were like going, this is going to change this. And I could just see the look on Clive's face of like, oh no, they're not getting it. And he wanted to put more of the characters back in, more the character line, and they were saying, no, shorter, trim it up, bring the monsters out.
I kind of realised when I got to the end of the edit and I put that scene back in, that what I'd actually created from Clive's material was Gone with the Wind with monsters. No, but it's a completely epic love story now. Laurie, she's properly defined. You find out about Boone. You've got Decker is more classical crazy because he talks to the mask and things. And then, your character's properly developed. You feel more for the Nightbreed now. And when you get the Hicks with all the guns, you start to realise how fucked up humanity is. And that all happens in this beautiful, semi-Jean Cocteau, Federico Fellini kind of background. And that's what Clive was trying to do. But, my question to you would be, and Clive kind of paused this himself, but he kind of completely destroyed him at the time as a filmmaker, didn't he? He took it really badly, the reactions and what happened.
Well, it seemed like it was out of his hands. He usually gets to do what he wants with his writing, but when it comes to movies, it's the theater and it's the numbers, and we've got to make our money back. And so it was just, he saw his story slipping through his hands, and then he was just doing his best to at least make it something that would be successful, so he could go on and do something interesting with the sequels. So it was a huge disappointment for sure. But it was really great to see Laurie's song number back in. I just remember watching that being filmed and going, wow, damn, she has a good voice.
At the first ever screening, she actually sang a song for Clive at the screening that she came to in North Carolina. So you guys are really important to us to do this. Your support's made this happen. So have you got anything you want to ask us? Anything else? Yeah, okay, yeah.
On the further restoration, you mentioned something about a DVD. Is Morgan Creek popping up better versions of footage? So
Morgan Creek kind of struggled at the beginning of making films because they didn't look after the material, they didn't look after the prints, they didn't look after the source material. So it's been completely lost ever since. So that's why what we find is those tapes. Now, those tapes can be restored to DVD, Blu-ray quality, but it's a painstaking process. Anything digitally can be restored now. So old films can be discovered and restored, and this can be... If anyone's seen Alien 3's work print on the Blu-ray, that looked about this good. And it now is Blu-ray DVD quality, and it's going to cost about $50,000 to do the tapes to that quality and do the sound mix, and that's where the initial money from the release will go. So that when you see the DVD scenes in there, the quality will be at least that good, constantly all the way through the film. Yeah. Yeah, but we don't own the film. I don't own it. I carry this film around, I have single copies of it, but it belongs to Morgan Creek, and Morgan Creek don't want to do anything with it other than sell it. So I've done all their work, and me, Clive and Mark have done that. I've gone and promoted it all around the world so that another company can buy it and release it. So we can't kickstart, because there's a thing where the copyright belongs to Morgan Creek. Everything belongs to them. So it's catch-22. I know tomorrow that we would raise enough money doing it that way. Piece of cake. We'd raise 10 times the amount of money, but it won't happen as long as it belongs to Morgan Creek, and they won't let it go. And they won't let it go even more now because it's got a second life. Things don't often get a second life, but just like The Wicker Man, this film's managed to do it, which is a wonderful thing. So, any other questions out there?
Actually, it's nothing like that. I have a really random question. I read an article many years ago about how very much fun you had with the blood of Baphomet being thrown in your face for days.
That was such an uncomfortable scene to film. It was this flour with milk in it, and they had the camera on me, and I just had to wait while this guy with a big pitcher threw it in my face, and it was painful. And to not have that look of, oh my God, here we go again, number 10. He's about to throw this thick goo in my eyes. And So yeah, it was it was an intense scene to film. But that whole thing of going down the stairs into Baphomet, I mean, that thing looked amazing in real life. It was so easy to just think, I am there, and what is this? It was spectacular to be there on the set.
It was all built in Pinewood Studios in England, and it was painstakingly done over a long period of time. And actually, the film was put back because it got damaged early on when Clive was designing it. But everybody worked so incredibly hard on that set, and it was just the most wonderful thing. Clive was building that while they were doing kind of Batman next door.
Just the Batman, so the Batmobile was right behind Midian. It was like right there.
Yeah, so all of that went on, and then ironically, the same person scored that film, did the other one. And I said yesterday that where does Danny Elfman's score stop and where does the next one start? Because there are elements of that sound like Edward Scissorhands in that score. Yeah. And one of the things that was the hardest job that we had to do in reconstructing this was taking a 50-minute Danny Elfman score and try and make it work on a 2-hour, 20-minute long movie. So, that was difficult. But we tried to do it intelligently and try and create motifs from his work so we could give it to characters and things. I don't know if we will get more score for the end of the restoration, but I know that as many of the characters as possible will be properly dubbed back into their own voices. Yeah.
When you had it all cut apart and you were putting it back together, how long did it take to put it all back together?
It probably took about 3 months of work, because I did it with an editor. I like to work properly, so I did it with an editor. We thought about it. We looked at scenes. We didn't rush really. Clive didn't know I was doing it, so it was kind of nobody knew I was doing it. And I was really, as much as I love being with everybody tonight, I actually made it for me because I wanted to watch it. Because I was so in love with it. I've read the novel, and Clive had spoke so passionate about it, and I just wanted to watch it. And then my only goal after that was to take it to him and give it to him to watch. And that was beautiful to give it back to him. And he's such a kind human being that for him to share the director's credit with me now of his film 22 years later just shows what a wonderful human being he is. And he says the film now belongs to me and Mark because we do all the work on it and things. But it's fantastic. So I treasure it. And I saw this film when I was 22 years old, and then years later I get to do this to it. So it's fantastic. Any more questions?
So this film, for me, is all about anyone who's ever marginalized, right, and not accepted as normal. And Charlie Haight, as an actor, threw in lines all the time. He was a talented actor. But one line he threw in was faggot. And I'm a gay man, and the actor, Malcolm Smith, just winced at that when I saw it in the rushes when he actually did it. And I had never got to see the scene where I get to kill him and lift him up in the air and strangle him. And there was definitely some energy there of like, yeah, but faggot's killing you now.
Well, of course, I think these words are kind of funny because in the UK, they mean different things as well. We call a cigarette a fag, and that upsets people in different cultures. So he may not be as
Charlie Haight's an American.
And we were talking about 20 odd years ago, it was a different world, wasn't it? America was a different place. Yeah. So you got a question?
Yeah.
I'll over to you next.
I know that's a question, but I think this was really important. And Malcolm just said, in a lot of ways, this destroyed Clive as a filmmaker. And I'm a huge fan of Lord of Illusions, the movie he made after Hungary. But I'm wondering, as someone who worked really closely on this film, both of you in different ways, how do you think the impact of the experience of Nightbreed affected Lord of Illusions, which I think is a really underrated movie. In fact, I think it's his best film of the three that he directed. I know Hellraiser is a lot more fun, but Lord of Illusions is really good. And I'm wondering what you think the process of the stripping down of Nightbreed had on
is a studio film. So Clive made it, with a budget. He had to deliver a certain thing. Two versions existed at the same time, a director's cut and a non-director's cut. It found its audience on Laserdisc, and I mean, the process of making that, Clive just spills his heart into it. He made the film he wanted to make. I mean, I cannot agree with you on it. I think the cult sequence at the beginning is sublime. I think it's fantastic. I love Harry DMO, but I'm not sure it works as well as it could have worked. I don't know why I think that now. I love the film a lot. I think there's great things in it. My opinion is that this is my favourite Clive Barker film now. I'm not saying that in any kind of form of vanity, but it's got it always had a wide scope, and now with all the inhabitants of Midian being back in and all the story being there, it's just wonderful. And I think that it'll look even better when it's cleaned up, as Malcolm suggested. But I think that, Clive, makes films his way, and then he runs into the studio later. Yeah, I'll put Malcolm on inconsiderate.
But if this had been more of a theatrical success, he would have had a larger budget for Lord of Illusions, and so there would have been even more richness and more time to craft the movie the way he wanted it. It was quite a tight budget on that. That's the only thing I would think would be different. And maybe more energy around releasing it and really getting it out there.
Yeah, okay, over there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say though, I thought that was written into it because it really worked with the whole narrative and you mentioned the anecdote about the guy throwing in the line, throwing the bag in the line, and I thought that was intentional because with the rest of the movie and the full version, it makes a lot of sense, really.
It's not a positive thing.
Ladies' underwear.
What?
In the book, Ashbury does wear ladies' underwear.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. The energy was accurate, and I think it was a good wounding for me to have.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't in the script, it got me. It was like, what?
Yeah.
So it was perfect. I think it added to the whole exchange.
We're not supposed to like his character as well, are we? But let's face facts. He's a kind of, he's a horrible, nasty man, and saying those things, kind of makes it stronger. So I kind of agree with you, that's right. Is somebody else over there with a question? Somebody else over there.
Back to the studio question, I wonder what you, as a filmmaker, what your opinion on is the screening process. I mean, obviously, do you think it helps, or is it more
Well, you were around there.
That's the whole side of the money machine, right? And no, that's where you lose the art of the film. So ultimately, you'd love to have a clause in there where you can say, I am making this film through to the end, and we're not going to test it. Say again?
The final cut is such a rare ability to have.
Right. So, no, the purse string holders retain the right of that final cut. And I know I was a screenwriter as well, and my movie, every time I turned it in, the feedback was less of the story and more of the monsters. And so it was always this. My first draft was my favorite.
Yeah, and we all get upset from time to time when things happen to movies, right? And if anyone knows Morgan Creek, you know the story of Exorcist 3, and they kind of did a similar thing to that, and nobody can get their hands on anything. So that's why when we found the first work print and then we found a second work print, it was so incredibly exciting. And I actually have another tape at home and I know that it's got a nude sequence with Boone transforming, and I know that it's got something else in there. But I want to transfer it properly. I want to protect the tapes because. Yeah, but to find this and give it a second life and go beyond the studio. I mean, your question about, Morgan Creek and Kickstarters and things like that. They, at the end of the day, Morgan Creek didn't care about this film, and they laughed at us when we wanted to restore it. And now that it's found such a large audience, I've had screenings to 1,400 people sold out, and people just really want to watch it, and you don't get very many negatives from screening it now, even in this day. People understand what Clive was trying to do.
I don't know what you were talking about last night, like the 7th version as well.
Yeah. Well, it just evolves, and it'll evolve to the day it's released, and that's filmmaking. Right? But I'm proud that it reaches you. That people get to see it. That's the wonderful thing about it. And it won. I never got an award, but it was in the top 30 restorations and director's cut of all time. And he got 14th place, and he beat The Exorcist. Right, and it was beaten by The Wild Bunch, right? And to me, as a filmmaker, this was made for about $200, and there wasn't another film in that top 30 that wasn't a studio picture that had been restored. I mean, number one was Blade Runner, but we got number. I was the happiest being number 14th a person could ever be, because it finally gets what it deserves. If it makes it into a top 30 in big film magazines, it's out of this world, and it's people like you that have allowed that to happen. So it's wonderful. I really want the cinema back, so we'll take one question and then we'll wrap up. And then I'm going to go downstairs. We brought some night reposters. Malcolm might be talking to sign in there, But yeah, we have got some night reposters downstairs, and that any money that comes from the sales of those posters pays to do this. So by buying a poster, you're supporting this film limp around the world finding its new audience. So, if anybody else has got a question, we'll take one more. If not, we'll head downstairs. Okay, good job.
Do you happen to know who did the country cover of Skier? It's playing on the radio at about halfway through.
The song on the radio.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
it's an Oingo Boingo song, so it's standing off me.
Yeah.
But it's a country version of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I can find that out.
It's on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the soundtrack.
Yeah, it is on the soundtrack. Yeah, I just don't know off the top of my head who did it. But I did put some new music in there in the bar scenes, and it's a friend of mine who's a blues musician, and I thought his music kind of worked because of the scene and things like that. So I've added as much music as I can to pick it up. So. When Boone is having his hallucination, I put a scene in a slightly different place, and Clive just wanted me to move it, and Clive wanted a bit of music on the Gone with the Wind sequence at the end, so he actually wants that quite more orchestral, but we kind of need to get original music for there to do what Clive wants to do. And then he asked me to tweak the boom at the beginning, because he said it 3 times. That was about it. Yeah. So for all that work, for somebody as picky as Clive Barker, we know how picky Clive Barker is. But
he's a big notes man. He'll tell you all the changes he wants until it's in his vision. So congratulations. You must have channeled him working on this. Good job.
Thank you very much. So, we're going to head down to there's a table at the front, so we'll be down there. And if you want to say anything or say hello, we'll be there. So thanks very much, guys.
On the web, you can reach us at www.clivebarkercast.com. We're on iTunes, so leave us a review there. That'll certainly help us out. We have a Facebook fan page, and please join the Occupy Midian group. There are nearly 7,000 members on that page right now. On Twitter, we're at BarkerCast and at Occupy Midian. And the forum is www.clivebarkerfans.com/forum. The theme was by Colin Lakativa. And thank you again for joining us. This was episode 42, Occupy Midian on location in Portland, Oregon.